Hi, welcome to this episode of Your Black World News. I'm your host, Roosevelt Mitchell III. On January 7, 2016, 5 boys were quickly arrested, 2 of them turned in by their own parents. New York's mayor and other critics demanded to know why the police hadn't acted sooner. In fact, why 5 teenage boys had approached a man and his daughter a night on a Brooklyn playground, ordering the man away at gunpoint before gang raping the 18-year-old woman in public. But on Wednesday, prosecutors announced that they were dropping all charges against the 5 teens, ages 14 to 17. The woman and her father provided inconsistent and unreliable stories, said Brooklyn attorney Ken Thompson. A piece of a cell phone video suggested the sex was consensual, prosecutors also stated. And worst of all, the father himself had engaged in sexual conduct with his own daughter. Thompson stated. When investigators interviewed the teenagers, all of them claimed that there were no gun and that the woman had willingly had sex. She said, yeah, a man's voice can clearly be heard saying that on the video. And when confronted by the police, the father and daughter recanted their statement, admitting that there was no gun. The woman admitted that she had consented to group sex, and the father and daughter also both eventually admitted to drinking alcohol and having sex with one another, according to the Times. These teenagers could have easily been a 2016 version of the Central Park 5, the 5 teens who were convicted of false rape charges and sentenced to between 5 and 15 years in prison for the 1989 rape of a woman who was jogging through Central Park, only for another man to confess in raping a woman in 2002. The 5 men were exonerated and received a $40 million settlement from the city. And here today to discuss this with me is Miss Valerie Denise Jones, whom is involved heavily in the case of James Allen Dasher, who has been incarcerated for over 35 years for a rape charge in which the victim clearly identified another person by name. How are you doing today, Valerie?
Hi, Roosevelt. Thank you for having me. It is both an honor and a pleasure to speak with you and to be featured on the Voice of Watkins channel, because it is of my opinion that Black World News deserves to be articulated. It is time that we Black folks stop absorbing most, if not all, of the punishment. So again, I say thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you so much for being here. About this article, you read this article, and as sad, horrific, and downright nasty as it is, what are your thoughts about the entire situation?
Okay, well, I wanted to read an excerpt, if you don't mind. I'm going to take my time with the subject matter because it's so important to me. So the headlines read, charges were dropped against 5 teenagers accused of raping an 18-year-old woman at gunpoint in Osborne Playground on January 7, 2016. Now, Roosevelt, the case made national headlines. It outraged politicians and critics and stoked fear in the Brownsville community. So if you're asking why I'm so vested in the story or why I'm so angry, for 2 reasons. The first reason is obvious, which is the reason why you have me on the show, and that is because it mirrors James Allen Dasher's case, which I know we will talk about during this interview. But the other thing is that there are always 2 victims when there's a crime. So I'm going to read this excerpt. By labeling a woman the victim before evidence has been admitted, we impliedly rush to judgment and declare the woman's allegation to be factual. So what does that say? It's just saying that such a description does a grave disservice to the presumed innocent who are accused of such crime. So the disclaimer, I'm a woman, so of course rape is an abhorrent crime to me. But what we do is we trivialize it when we include among its victims women who might be false accusers. And we already have enough dissension in our country. So instances such as this only reverberate what's already going on. So that's why, this story is so important to me.
Exactly, because you talk about James Allen Dasher's case. So can you briefly explain that for the audience?
Well, yeah, I will transition from this story to that because I just really wanted to make sure I honed in a certain point, and that is we live in a very dangerous hour, right? So it's very, very important that we acknowledge the fact that we've got some crazy people in this world, or some people who sort of sensationalize things where they take certain subject matter for granted. And if I don't know if you watched this video on YouTube that went viral not too long ago, but that video that's Damn Daniel, you know that one?
Yeah, I hadn't seen it. I heard everybody saying it, but
Uh,
I was wondering.
Okay.
What does that
Well,
stand
if the crazies will go as far as to SWAT that filmmaker's his home, then how do we think that they would approach these 5 black minors when society is already deemed most of, well, black minors, kids, women, children, whatever, as thugs and terrorists? So the truth of the matter is, as it relates to this case, Ethan Phillips, who is one of the accused, is the son of a carpenter, a stay-at-home mom. He plays on 2 basketball teams. Travis Beckford's character was so stellar that it prompted his high school teachers to attend his arraignment to support him. So again, this is not just James's case is an isolated incident. This is not a tale of little Negro boys being railroaded by the legal system. This is a tale of America. And I also want to ask you another question. Do you remember the a case called Central Park 5?
Yes.
It happened in like 1989.
Yeah.
The reason why this I bring that up is because during this time when these 5 young adults were being accused, they slandered their names, they invaded their privacy, they were judged by the court of public opinion, and to me that was dangerous because if we go back to the 1989 case where Donald Trump was involved, a woman, at that time, let me just give you a little history. A woman was brutally raped while jogging through Central Park, and 5 minority juveniles, 4 black and 1 Hispanic, were immediately arrested. And then Donald Trump took out a full-page ad in 4 New York newspapers with the title "Bring Back the Death Penalty." And then, like years later, another man confessed, and the young men were exonerated, but they will never outlive the stigma that has forever been placed on that because it's been immortalized because, you know, we all know it, and they will forever be known as the Central Park 5. So it's just, this is important to me, getting the word out, heightening the attention, and then also transitioning into James's case. James Allen Dasher's case is important because rape is just the things that we're doing as a society, how we're kind of playing this subject matter very lightly. It's damaging to everybody, all parties involved. So as it relates to that particular case, an 18-year-old and her father were in the park having sex, drinking beer, having sex, having fun, and they were approached by 5 young boys. Again, let me give their names because I do want to pay homage to them because I think that they deserved not to be slandered and not to be bullied in the way that we bullied them by way of the media. But Shaquille, and forgive me if I mispronounce their name, but Shaquille Cooper, who's 15, Ethan Phillips, who's 15, Travis Beckford, 17, Onandi Brown, who's 17, and Denzel Murray, 14. The story was shady from the beginning. None of it made sense. The story made Donkey of the Day during one of the shows at the Breakfast Club, or The Breakfast Club is the name of the show. And I mean, it was a hot mess from the beginning. And the girl, she sort of kind of recanted her story, but the police figured out that it didn't make sense. And that's when it all started to fall apart. But they had already been arrested. You know what I'm saying? Imagine you're 14 years old and you're behind bars.
Right, for something that you did not do, and then again they received death threats and everything. So they will not be the same after this. You know what I mean? So when we talk about trauma, like that's a traumatic experience for those young boys.
Right. Yeah. And see, it's moments like this when I feel getting angry is a valid emotion. Shoot. Jesus got angry, you know, and inside the synagogue and started throwing bows, so to speak. But it's just you just you're mad because the boys didn't deserve this. I'm just sick and tired of people of young black men being railroaded by a system the story goes on and on. I don't want to transition to, it's about a race war, but God, I don't really know how to put into words how I feel about false allegations of rape.
It's just amazing how, as you stated earlier, the court of public opinion can really sway things.
Well, I say railroaded by the system because they should have gathered all the evidence before arresting these young boys. And then also, too, why put footage on the screen that clearly shows their face? They're minors, too. Shouldn't they be protected? There's so much that could have been done behind the scene that was not, which gives me just a bad taste in my mouth regarding our justice system, because it's in favor of certain people or instances, whereas it doesn't work for another group. So there's like a two-tier system. One where people who the system deems relevant get to enjoy the privacy. Well, I won't say enjoy, but for lack of a better word, are granted a certain amount of privacy, whereas people who they just sort of write off, or there's some type of prejudice or discrimination against them, and they slander their name. They slander their character. I mean, just think, when this was put in the paper, they put the names, criminal backgrounds. They didn't report the truth. They didn't report the issues. They just literally reported the story based on what was reported to them by the 18-year-old and her father. And that's what I'm saying. That's an injustice, just as it is an injustice in James's case, because the victim did not identify him as the person who raped her. There were no eyewitnesses. There was testimony misidentification. There was legal misconduct. The prosecutors had contact with the jurors during recess. And speaking of jurors, one of the jurors fell asleep during the trial. I mean, just when you look at certain things and then people end up in certain situations, it's just, there are really no words that can describe the array of emotions that we on the outside experience, as well as the person who's going through it. So I don't really know how to answer that question or approach it, but that's just my opinion.
Well, I thank you so much for your time, and I would like to give you the last word.
To learn more about James Allen Dasher's case, you may visit his website at www.jamesallandasher.com. He has a Facebook page. He has a Twitter page. On the website, you will see certain petitions that we definitely want to encourage you to sign. There's a YouTube page where they're building a YouTube page, because there are several clips that they're putting together. So please visit the YouTube page, like, comment, subscribe, and share the story. Also share your stories. That's another thing that the family welcomes, because they are really, truly trying to join the Innocence Project, who has taken this project up, and they want to do all that they can on the outside to assist the Innocence Project's efforts to exonerate James Allen Dasher. So that's why I'm here today, to discuss that, and also the injustices in the world, and to let people know, please stop romanticizing this subject, because the struggle is real.
Thank you so much, and I hope you all enjoyed this segment of Your Black World News, and until next time, my friends, be blessed and be encouraged.